Hi, Lisa. I see you. Hello to the other folks who are joining. I know it's just right at the top of the hour. I am very fond of being punctual. Thank you for coming. Hi, Lisa. I see you. Oh, hold on. Hello to the other folks who are joining. Okay, I'm learning how to do this live streaming thing. I've never done it before on YouTube. I am live streaming on YouTube as well. Feel free to be on or off camera, whatever your comfort level is. Right now, the only thing that should be showing on YouTube is the pinned thing, which is me in this presentation. But if and when, because I hope that we will have discussions, when we do that, feel free to stay off camera if you don't want to be seen on the YouTube live stream, or you can chat your question and I can just or your comment, and we can do it that way. I don't know how many people are going to show up, but I'm so thankful to those of you who did. It means the world to me to have some folks actually join me live. I've never done anything like this. This is definitely not going to be the star-studded affair that we've been seeing on all these other calls. I don't have celebrity friends, so it's just going to be me. But I did make a fancy slideshow, which is very exciting. So I will go through this and we're just going to talk about some of the issues that as white women or white folks, because we may also have some gender expansive or non-binary folks who join us, but for all of us who are not cishet white men and or Black women, because this is for us to better understand why this election is important and why we historically have been the problem and why we need to be part of the solution and changing things. So thank you for joining me. I don't know if I'll be able to see the chat. Hopefully I will, but if I can't, I will get to it once we get through these things, or I may stop every once in a while in this little presentation to check on things. So in the meantime, please make sure that you use the chat to meet each other, share how to follow each other so that oh, I can see the chat. Okay, good. Now I know. I say thank you, Lisa. So feel free to use that chat to get to know each other, where to follow each other. Some of you may be coming from Threads, which is where I tend to hang out the most, but use whatever social media platforms are exciting to you. You may also have come through my Substack, which is amazing if you did. And hi, Kate. And then setting the container, I just want to say, like, this is a space I've already shared that that this will be live streamed. I'm not recording it, but the live stream will then go to YouTube. So it does exist as a recording, I think. I believe that's what happens. I've never done this live streaming. I'm assuming and hoping it's working. So if you're watching the live stream on YouTube, hello. But as far as other things, let's try to assume positive intent. If we get to the space of discussion, we try to assume that everyone's coming into the space with positive intentions, not to harm or be malicious. And so we assume that about each other. We also like to make sure that we are centering our own lived experience and not trying to make blanket statements or presume things about others. Great way to do that is just to say, in my experience, X, Y, Z. So that way we can make sure that we're not putting things onto others. And if for some reason advice comes up, I love this thing from Sarah Peck. If she happens to see this, she said that advice is like blankets. They're wonderful when you need one, but when you're already hot, you don't want one, right? And so make sure you're asking for consent if you're trying to give someone a blanket, if you want to give advice. Obviously, don't be an asshole. Hope that goes without saying. Also, feel free to use the language that works for you. There's no tone policing, language policing. If you are needing to eat dinner while we do this, eat dinner while we do this. You're a human with human needs. And so we always say it's okay to have those human needs. My kiddo may drop by every once in a while. Okay. I love you, buddy. All right, go sit down. That's Gus. He's very excited to elect Kamala Harris too. So anyway, that's the reality of life, right? and you feel free to be real humans too. So I'm gonna get started. If anyone has any questions though, before I do, please let me know. I don't see any, and I think I have it set up so people can just drop in as we go. So we may have more folks who come and go. If you need to leave, you can also feel free to leave. If you want to get the YouTube link from me, if you can't find it, it's my channel. If you just search Becky Mollenkamp, you'll find the YouTube to be able to watch the live stream later. But if you can't find it for some reason, reach out to me. You should have my email. I'll happily send it to you. Also, if there's for some reason you might want these slides, let me know and I'm happy to send them along to you. So We are going to talk about the white women problem today because it's such a critical issue that I think is really something that we need to focus on this year because even a really small shift in the way we as white women vote would make it for certain the Democrats would win this year. Because when you look at these numbers, and going back to 92, but actually it goes back much farther than that white women have voted Republican. I think it was all but two elections in the last, since 1950 something, white women have chosen the Republican candidate and not the Democratic candidate by a majority. And that's all of them back to 92, obviously, because the best anyone did was Clinton and Gore back in 96 and 2000. Meanwhile, our friends, our Black friends, our Latinx friends, and sadly, the data for Asian women specifically was very hard to find. There's information about Asian people as a whole, but not broken out by men and women that I could find. But still, we can look at the numbers of the last two elections and all the others and see that who's pulling the weight here, right? And who is not. We are the problem. We're the ones that need to fix this rather than expecting other people to save us. That narrative around Black women will save us. Let's, have the Black women take care of things. Like, that's not okay. And we have to stop participating in that narrative and start owning that we are the ones that need to make the change here. White women specifically represent 39% of the electorate. That is the largest voting bloc. It's more than white men. It's more than any other group of people. We are also the most divided. All of the splits happen along all of these different identity lines. Every other demographic, white men, Black women, Asian men, all these other demographics vote much more uniformly. They all sort of vote the same way. We are the group that tends to be the most divided. We are the least alike in how we vote, which, again, if we could fix that, that would be the thing that could change things. This is a long quote, but I think it's really important to talk about the why. Why are white women, voting against our own interests? We know that Republicans, as we have seen, are not supportive of so many of the issues that matter to us around childcare, around obviously reproductive rights issues, so many other issues that are really important to women. Republicans are not aligned with how most white women actually feel about many of those issues. And yet, the majority of white women continue to vote against those interests. Why? And it goes back to patriarchy, and it goes back to proximity to power. And so white women, we have two identities, right? Two primary identities, woman and white. But when we look at the sort of hierarchy, I use that in quotes, of identities, we know that whiteness is at the top, right? And then we can look at patriarchy and look at men. But whiteness in the world in which we live is that dominant above all other identities. And so women, when faced with these two identities, very often choose the one that's at the top because it is their way of also them protecting themselves. And I thought this was a really great quote to help get at that. And again, if anybody ends up wanting these slides, you can have them to share with other white women that you know or other folks that might be of interest of these things. But so we vote against our own interests as actually a way to try to preserve power for ourselves. And that's the thing we have to start to challenge within ourselves and then hopefully also with other white women. There we go. Oh, did I go too far? Yes, I did. I wanted to also share this quote from Rachel Cargle, who I think is amazing. Just it kind of gets to the same thing, a little bit simpler, that white women are choosing their whiteness over their womanhood and choosing to vote for people who help maintain white supremacy as opposed to what will help maintain the safety of women overall. And this is the stuff that we as white women really have to reflect on and get really honest with ourselves. And in what ways are we still, even those of us who feel are, consider ourselves super progressive and liberal, what ways are we still participating in that? What ways are we still allowing our whiteness to take the priority over that other of our identity that we share with all women? Okay, so this problem is old. This is not a new problem. It keeps coming up every election. Everyone holds their breath. And then the results come in and we say, well, damn it, white women did it again. Once again, they have voted Republican, and sometimes that has cost us dearly. And it may feel like what is going on now, but the truth is it's always been going on. It's always been going on for as long as America has existed and prior to that. But we'll talk about the American experience, because when it comes down to a choice between patriarchy and sisterhood, white women choose patriarchy. In the civil rights movement, so going back not that far into the 60s and 70s, that second wave of feminism, this thing was happening then. The white women were not doing the work that needed to be done to incorporate the needs of women of color into their movement. I'm going to share at the end the Combahee collective statement that you can read, where it was such an issue that Black women, most especially Black lesbians, broke off and said, from feminists, said, this doesn't represent us. You're not taking care of us. You're prioritizing your needs yet again. Listen to us. And so it's a really important thing to read. So I will share the link to that. Going back another generation to the suffragettes, when they gathered in Seneca Falls to try and fight for the right for women to vote, it was about white women voting. There were many people, including the most well-known, and people we still, folks who maybe haven't done as much work, still really respect and will quote, like Susan B. Anthony, who fought actively against Black women being included in that right for getting the vote. It's some of the stuff that we sometimes hear again now, I think, where it becomes about, well, we gotta, like, the only way we can get this thing is if we compromise. And so that compromise now has to look like you wait your turn, but we promise we'll get back to you, right? And that stuff still continues in how we show up. And that's why it's important for us to understand the history and the full context and narrative as we think about issues that are coming up now. And going back even farther, even when women, back before women could vote, before they could hold office, when the land that they owned was actually owned by their husbands, even in all of that, white women still, one way that they could have parity with white men was that they could buy and sell and own enslaved people. And 40% or more of slave owners were white women, which is not something we think about, talk about, own, reflect on, understand nearly enough. We sort of think of this as always been a patriarchy problem and a men problem. And women were also, we like to often as white women try to own our oppression in all of this. And yes, there is that, but running right alongside of that, no, couldn't vote, couldn't hold office, couldn't own land. And many, many, many white women also chose to be owners of enslaved folks. That's a problem. Oops, sorry about the doggy. See, it's real life here. So I want to just talk about some of the pillars of white supremacy culture, because I think they're kind of an issue that are coming up now. If any of you follow me on Threads, you may be aware of some of what I'm talking about here, because it's been an issue for me on there. Our urgency as white women is not a universal sense of urgency, baby. I need you to let me have space, okay? I love you. Because urgency is a pillar of white supremacy. And for so many white women, there is this feeling in this election, 2016, it was there too, even more so now, there is this sense of urgency of, we have to stop this now because we will be pulled back, right? Even with Kamala's, what is it? We won't go back, that slogan they're using, which is a great slogan. And I think it's important to remember that, yes, Project 2025 and Trump and fascist leadership, those are real and dire threats. And the way that it's framed by many white people is this future vision of this dystopia that is this awful thing. And what we need to remember and have the bigger context around as white women is that Black women have already lived and are in many ways still living without many of the freedoms that we now are just now in 2024 worrying about being threatened, right? So there are many people there's no group is a monolith, as we can see with white women especially, but no group is a monolith. And there are many folks who are people of color or, have multiple overlapping identities who feel that same level of threat. But there are also many Black women and Black folks who feel this bit of, oh, it's an issue now that it's an issue for you, right? Oh, suddenly you're worried about your rights. And now we're all supposed to feel your same level of urgency about the situation. And when we talk about it in that kind of framing, that is not a framing that is respectful of, honoring of, understanding of this larger context. And once again, is a way that we are sort of separating ourselves as white women and taking that whiteness piece of our identity and prioritizing it. So it's something for us to watch for and think about when we're talking about these issues. I love this quote from Bree Newsom, who says, "We're becoming a Handmaid's Tale," which is something we have heard so much about over since the Dobbs decision, is a really white-centered take that ignores that we're living in a struggle against genocide and slavery that's been going on for 500 years. So for white women, it's suddenly feeling like, ooh, this is scary. This is not great. This could be really bad. And yet we forget how many of our Black sisters and other, anyone of color who's sitting there going, yeah, for you, it looks real scary for you. This has been real scary for us for forever since this country was started. And so it's really important for us to think about. And I just want to even frame it in terms of like Project 2025. Again, yes, a very real threat, deeply problematic, something we need to stop. And we need to even think of it inside of this bigger lens if we want to be able to have these conversations in a way that is not just about prioritizing us as white women and our fears. So there are several things here that the Project 2025 will do. I just pulled out a few of these areas to highlight. I will share, if you haven't already read it, I will share the link to both the 920-page full report, if you have that kind of time, or the like 48, I think it is, page sort of synopsis from Democracy Now, I believe it is, so that you can read and get informed on it. But there's these, I'll just let you look at them: justice, LGBTQ, labor, health, education, and these key areas. Some of these things that are really, really scary that could be coming. And it is absolutely true that they are really, really scary. And I think it's important to remember that the current reality for Black women in each of these areas is already really, really scary and really, really bad, and far worse than anything that we as white women experience or understand. So when we talk about these changes that are coming and say, do you understand how bad it could be? I don't think you understand how far they're taking us back. I don't think you understand what's happening. When we do that, especially in spaces with people of color, we are not honoring the fact that their experience is so different than ours. And so this is not to say that that you can't support Harris. We're here to do that. It's not to say that you can't say that Harris is a far better option, or that we need to get rid of Trump, or that Project 2025 is awful. Of course. And we have to have it inside of this broader context of the fact that it is not just our lived experience that is changing in this big way. Other people, their experience has been very different all along. And we need to be able to be really honoring of that. So just think it's important for us to always think about these context issues when we're talking about this stuff. So this is why I say we need to learn how to, as white women, stretch beyond the binary, because either or thinking is yet another one of these pillars of white supremacy culture. It is absolutely possible for us to both want Trump to lose and to not think that Harris is necessarily the best alternative, right? That she's not maybe fully representative of all of our values or of all the values of our Black friends, family, siblings, all of that. It's also possible for both to vote for Harris, which I'm going to do, and to question her stances. Specifically for me, multiple genocides happening across the world. There are many other stances that some people may have an issue with, and it is okay for both of those things to be true. It's also possible to both fundraise, let's call it a fundraise, fundraise for a Democrat and not be a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. It's okay if you are, I'm not, but I am going to fundraise for the Democrat because I think it's important. But also I'm doing that with the full context of all of these other issues and knowing that she's better. She's going to help stop Project 2025. And there are many things that could also improve. And it's okay for both of those things to be true. Kimberly Crenshaw, if you don't know, is the person who coined the phrase or the term intersectionality or intersectional feminism, the idea of feminism that is everything we're talking about here, a vision of rights for women that talks about rights for all women and also all people, meaning that our non-binary friends, right? Our trans male friends, everyone who is, we look at all pieces of a person's identity and how those various intersecting pieces of our identity affect our proximity to power, or how far we are from that, our proximity to that power or our oppression. And so it's important that when you talk about these things, you're looking at it through that kind of a lens. The things I want to suggest beyond just supporting Harris, I think this is important. We're going to do some, I'm going to ask you to donate. But the things that beyond that I want to make sure we're all thinking about as white women specifically during this time is educating ourselves. If anything I've shared is new to you, and more than likely it may not be, because you're probably here because you have heard my voice and feel aligned with that. So a lot of this may not be new to you, which is okay. But if any of it is, or even if there's things that, there's things I still don't know. So we all need to be learning. We need to not be asking Black folks to do that, and certainly not to do that for free. We need to Google, it's our friend. We can do that on our own. We can also read lots of books and listen to podcasts. There's a lot of resources out there. And as we learn, we need to investigate ourselves to say, how might my privilege be disadvantaging others? How might I be causing harm? And then how can I learn? And the next one, evolve, right? We also need to take that knowledge and then actually put it into action in growth, right? So we want to avoid white supremacy tactics. Some of the ones I've discussed. Another one that I want to call out is defensiveness, because we as white women, that is probably one of the issues that gets us in the most trouble, right? The whole Karen sort of thing, where we, in the face of being called in or out on those microaggressions or macroaggressions, the ways that we mess up, when we get defensive, that is not helping. When we use our tears as a weapon, that is not helping, right? We need to learn how to recognize when we have made a mistake, when we've caused harm, and make amends, and then learn and do better. And we need to do all of that, not because of guilt, white guilt, and not because we want to receive praise or because we want to be superior to others, but because it's the right thing to do. And so those are really important things to remember in that process of evolution. Also, as you learn more, then you can speak more. When you see injustice, especially when that injustice is happening to someone where you hold the privileged or oppressor identity, to speak out against it. And as we've been talking about, the thing that I want to make sure we talk about the most is also to always have this broader context beyond our own lived experiences as white women that we use when talking about, framing, thinking about any issue. And I mean any issue, because every issue, whether it is like what you're watching on TV or making for dinner or who you're voting for, all of them are political, and all of it exists inside of this larger context that we need to consider. And then the last thing is amplifying the voices of Black women. Listen to, oh, Boise, I see myself here where I've made some typos. I rushed through this, but listen to Black women, what they are saying. Oh no, that one was okay. Listen to what Black women are saying about an issue, and then default to or share their voice before using your own. Let their words speak for themselves. Don't speak over, correct, question, diminish, interpret their words. That's something that all of us can do, whether that is in a social media space or in your workspace. And as white women, that's something, especially if you are a boss or you work in a workspace, to think about the ways that you are speaking up or amplifying the voices of people of color. Let's see, I muted her, I think. Okay. I wanted to share a few books, some resources for people. This is a very small sampling of some of the books that I've read and suggest. There are so many amazing books. If any of them you haven't read, again, I'm happy to share the slideshow with you. They're all actually clickable. All of the sources and things I mentioned here are, so I'm happy to share that. But these are some that are really valuable. They Were Her Property is, again, going back to that, the stats around how many white women owned enslaved people. Really, really great read to help understand that really deep context around white women's role in and that relationship between white women and Black women. I'm going to skip down one to Mothers of Massive Resistance, because that goes into sort of that, it goes back farther, but talking about the civil rights movement and the ways that white women played such a role in slowing down progress there, specifically and especially around schools And we see it continuing to happen very much, right? Around the ways, what we're going to allow to be taught in school, who gets to play on sports teams in schools, all of these things, and the way that white women try to police the schools as a method of continuing white supremacy in a way that allows them to feel superior and not like they're white supremacists. White Feminism is one of the best books I've read around understanding what white feminism looks like and calling yourself lovingly in on your own feminism. And is it actually intersectional and for everyone, or is it not? The Trouble with White Women, it's actually written by a white woman. And I tried to make sure I had some books that were both, because I think it's really important for us to listen to Black women. And there are many white women writing about white women specific issues in a way that I think that feels more invitational to white women when they're earlier in this journey and learning, because, they know how to speak to white women because they are. So that one's a really great book too, about feminism and the ways it's excluded people of color. Feminism for Everybody was my entry point for Bell Hooks. I could recommend every one of her books, but I just thought I would start there since it's specifically around the idea of feminism for everyone. And Sister Outsider, if you haven't read Audre Lorde, read Audre Lorde. Just period. It needs to happen. We all need to read Audre Lorde. And then I also just wanted to share a few of the people that I'm following on Threads specifically, since that's one of the places that many of you may have come from. They're also probably all on Instagram and probably many of them on TikTok, that are not necessarily all people that are not in favor of Harris or something like that, but people who are really doing, I think, a wonderful job of helping to educate, and specifically educating white people about the things I'm talking about here around some of the nuance and the context of this election that go beyond just, hey, a Black woman's running for president, we have to vote for her. It's sort of this like, let's understand that there is no perfect candidate, right? And it's okay to question that and to still say, I want to support this candidate too, because of the threat that exists with Project 2025. So if you're not following any of them, I highly recommend it. There's so many amazing Black women creating content. We're lucky to be able to receive from them. And then Catrice Jackson, I have the book over there, From Antagonists, Advocates, and Allies. This is not necessarily a direct quote from the book, but that's her book. And this, I think, is one of the most important things for us to think about, because everyone here, I have a feeling, identifies as a liberal or a progressive or a Democrat, or in some way feels like they are not part of the white woman problem. It is easy for us to make ourselves the exception, to make it about them, those white people. They're the problem. I have been very guilty of this. I still feel the pull inside myself to do that, to make myself exceptional, to make myself different from the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world. And listen, we are better than the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world. And we have to own that they are still ours. Right? We are the ones who are raised in that same water as Marjorie Taylor Greene, breathing the same air, having the same issues around the conditioning we receive that makes us feel this pull, perhaps not as big as hers, thankfully, but still we are fighting against the pull that wants to say, let's cling to that whiteness identity because we know it will save us, right? We know it will help us. And I love my Black sisters until push comes to shove, and then I'm going to still side with that white identity. And that is something that it is so deeply embedded. It is not our fault. We are all born into it and live it constantly. But that is why we have to do continuous work to confront that inside of us. Because you could, let's say theoretically you can't, but let's say theoretically today you were able to do all the work to remove all of your, racist biases that have been embedded in you. The second you walk out that door tomorrow, forget even walking out the door. The second you turn on the TV, the second you listen to a book or put on a podcast, the second you open your computer to do some work, you get onto Threads, no matter what, you are in it. It's in again. It's coming at you again, right? There is no escaping it. So we have to continuously do the work, always be learning, always be evolving, growing, calling out, all of that to make sure that this stuff doesn't stay with us. These are the resources I was mentioning. The Combahee River Collective statement is linked there, the Project 2025 stuff. And then there's a couple of articles that I thought were fairly interesting too that might be interesting to you, specifically the Divorcing White Supremacy Culture by Tima Okun. That one is where you can learn about all those pillars of white supremacy to watch for them in yourself. And I wanted to leave us with this thought, which is again from Catrice Jackson, and is again that great, you've been here. Great, you read the books. And this is me too. Great, I was here. Great, I read the books. Great, I'm following all these people. I cannot say that this is done. This work will never be done. And that is one of the hardest things for us as white women. We are conditioned to want to achieve, to reach the finish line, to conquer, to say we've done it. And so it is really, really hard as we go on this journey to confront the fact that we will never be done. We will never win. We will never conquer this. We will never be better than this. We will never finish until the day we all die, because we are not going to change these systems that are thousands of years old, certainly hundreds of years old in our lifetimes. We will, until the day we die, have to be continuously confronting these issues inside of ourselves if we truly want to be a part of the change. And, oh, I guess I'm not done. There's more. This, because now I want to get into the part about like, all right, that's all about us being white women. That's the white women problem, and hopefully the white women solution at some point. Let's talk about now, right? Because we're not going to change all that. Like we said, it's not going to happen today. And we got to we still need to defeat Project 2025, right? Whether you look at it as, I want to get Harris elected because you're excited for her and that's great. Or if you're maybe more in my camp, which is, I just want to defeat Project 2025 because I'm less excited about her, but more afraid of this. Wherever you're coming from, hopefully we have that shared goal of we can't see Trump elected again. And if that's the case, then I want everyone to think about what are your ways of being part of that change? Because another pillar of white supremacy is that there's one right way to do things. We see this on social media all the time. We see it a lot where people think there's only one way to truly be an activist. There's only one way to truly support Harris. I have certainly felt that recently as I have been more vocal about some of my issues with her. The truth is there are many ways to be a part of the change. I highly recommend checking out Deepa Iyer's social change map. Kudos to Taina Brown for sharing that with me. It's been so amazing for me. These are over here, you'll see in that graphic. These are all the different ways that you can be a part of the activism of making change around equity, liberation, justice, and solidarity. Not all of us are the disruptors. Not everyone is the one that's standing out there in the like an activist getting arrested. We need those people and thank God for them. But not all of us are those people. Some of us, where I like to think of myself as more of the storyteller. I'm on social media and I'm talking about these things. I'm sharing ideas. I'm holding this event to try and share ideas and talk about these things. Some people are the caregivers. They're the ones that are in there just checking on the activists, tending to their needs, saying, how can I help you? How are you getting enough rest? Right? We all have a piece of this. Some of us might find ourselves in several of the categories. It is important to activate in ways or in the way or in ways that are right for you, for your gifts, for your capacity, and in our case as white women, for our privilege. It's important for us to consider that piece. So you can vote. I will share, again, I can share these slides. If you don't know that you're registered to vote, there's a link to go make sure. Do that quick. You want to get that done before it's too late. And how far in advance of an election you have to do that varies by state. You also can find your polling place if you don't yet know where you're going to vote. You can educate. I link an article here on where Harris stands on different issues. And then Project 2025, again, is linked. I think I already shared it. It says next page, but it was actually back farther. So you can share those things and educate others as you go and talk about Harris and you talk about Project 2025. You can volunteer at kamalaharris.com. You can go right there to volunteer locally, to knock on doors, make phone calls. There's a lot of ways to get involved. And then, of course, you can donate in alignment with your privilege to the Harris Victory Fund. But again, not everyone needs to donate. Find the ways that you're going to show up. So I put this in twice, didn't I? So here's these resources again. Okay. Y'all, I did this today. So because because I, of course, I'm the queen of waiting to the last possible minute. I finished it about half an hour ago, so that's why some of it's a mess. And I just wanted to share a few quotes from some folks that I thought were really wonderful to just show this range of like, um, this is difficult. And our friends of color recognize that it's difficult as white people because we know that challenging these norms can cost us, right? It can cost us friendships. It can cost us our peace as we have people argue with us. There can be real cost to this. And the way that you show up to be a true ally and not just a self-appointed ally is to know that those costs are worth it and that you're going to be willing to have that cost because you need to. And not, again, not because it's going to earn you brownie points or get you invited to the cookout, but because it's the right thing to do. And that's why we have to do it. And I think that was it. Thank you very much. If you don't already follow me, you can on feministfounders.co. That's where I have my newsletter. I appreciate you all being here. Hi. Anyone who may have come in a little late, let me know. Okay, good. I don't know. If there's any questions in there I didn't see, let me know. I'm going to share now the link to the donation fund. Here's the thing. I'm not even that worried about it. I mean, I would love for people to donate. Please do. My guess is a lot of you may have already donated. You've probably attended some of the other White Women for Harris things or the other Women for Harris. Like all of these things are out there. We're all getting inundated with requests to donate. So if you've already donated, you can't donate. Cool. I can't track how many people donated. I'm not that cool. I don't have the link to get a special link that tells me how many of you donate on my thing or whatever. Like if you haven't, then donate. I would love to do a little giveaway though of one of my fancy t-shirts that I've made. So here's the Harris 2024 t-shirt or any other Harris t-shirt that you can go and get from my shop. I would love to give one away. So I'm going to do that at the end of this or in a little while. I'm going to be hanging out for a while. I might go through that whole thing again later for the next round of people if anyone else shows up. I don't know how this is going to go tonight. But I'm happy to, I'll share the t-shirt shop in here too. And so you can take a look. I'm donating half of the profits. This is not a sales pitch. It's sounding like it, but it's not. I'm only sharing it so that you can see what there are so that because I'm going to give one away to one of you. I'm trying to figure out how. First, I was thinking I would do it based on like, if you donate, you get entered into the thing. But frankly, at this point, I feel like donate. Don't donate. Do what's right for you. I don't want to pressure people to donate. Because I think there's lots of ways that we can support Kamala Harris and defeat Project 2025. But if you haven't donated, please do. And if you do donate, throw a little thing in there like, I donated. You don't have to tell us how much, but just say that you did, and then we'll know. But I'd love to open the floor to discussion, to talk about these issues, talk about what we've, been sharing here. And I'm going to look and make sure there's no chat. I see you on YouTube. It is working. So if you're watching on YouTube, hi, and feel free. Oh, thanks, Amy. Yay, we got a donation. And Kate donated once and is going to donate again later. Excellent, Kate. Thank you. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to share there. I can also see there and happy to like call anyone out and say thanks. But does anyone want to talk about any of what we just shared? Like, I don't really want to sit here for 2 hours talking to myself. So, but also know that if you do, like, raise your hand if you want to share anything. And if you do, just know that, like, if you're on camera, you'll be on YouTube on nobody watch. I have 400 subscribers. It's not that big a deal, but I just want you to know in case you want to maintain privacy. Thank you, Tracy. She's going to donate later. Presley donated. Connie donated. Yay. Anyone raise your hand. Come talk to me about any of the stuff that we talked about in that presentation or what you're thinking. Don't make me sit here by myself. Lisa, come on.
I just got here, so I missed your presentation. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay, Tracy. I was going to go back through it again at some point, probably because I know I'm supposed to be here 2 hours. So I might go back through it, because I did say open house style. So some people are going to come in later. But I would love to take a break from talking and hear what other people are thinking about with this upcoming election. If you have any thoughts about Project 2025, any fears, anything just specifically as a white person that's coming forward for you on how you want to show up or concerns you have, anything at all.
I will go.
Good. I knew I
I
could
know
count.
you're shocked.
Let me
Um,
remove my pin. There.
I live in Florida. For those of you who haven't met me before, I live in a particularly red county, so I am a bright spot of blue in a very, very red sea. And specifically, I live in a neighborhood filled with family that gleefully votes against all of our best interests. And so I have had to learn, the hard way that, sometimes when my passion drives the bus, it sounds like anger, and nobody responds well to anger. And exhaustion reads as apathy. And nobody responds well to somebody being apathetic, about your feelings. And so it is mind-boggling to me how steeped in the misinformation that pretty much everyone is in. I don't know if I said that right, but literally we'll start conversations and everybody's first, to your point, Becky, everybody's like, well, you're so political. And I said, listen, politics is a thread in which the fabric of our society is woven. So breathing is political for a lot of us.
For all of us.
So for all of us.
Because air quality, boom, I can make that. I mean,
Right?
literally everything's political.
Right. And, but they also, since Reaganomics, kind of wrecked a lot of stuff. And since Fox News is just a constant stream of misinformation, disinformation, flat out lies, they are convinced that all of the policies that are harming them are Democratic policies. And I can show them Republican policy, Republican policy, Republican policy. And they say, well, you're getting it from CNN. I'm like, honestly, CNN is too skewed your way. So I don't even watch CNN. I look at who votes what. I look at C-SPAN, I look at the actual bills that are passed, and they just won't believe me. And I am seeing even in these conservative communities that I circulate in, I'm seeing a difference. I'm furious at the way that Biden's dropout happened, because it did, take the voice of the people away and the will of the people away. However, with him dropping out and Kamala being the presumptive nominee, the energy is changing. I mean, when people in the villages are having golf cart rallies, the villages is notoriously super MAGA. And it's really has been fun to watch, especially since most of the people that argue with me are saying, oh, well, Biden's too old, he can't remember anything. And I'm like, well, I mean, first and foremost, he had a stutter, and they're like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. He's just too old. And I'm like, but so you're going to vote for the dude anyway. So you all know the arguments, you all know all of it, but watching the energy shift has been lovely, because I was afraid it was going to shift to, and it probably still will, but I thought it was immediately going to shift to anti-woman, anti-Black, anti-AAPI, anti all of the things.
Let's not forget all the DEI hire, DEI
Slept her
nominee
way to the
things. So,
top, all of it. But I don't know, man. This hope is, I'm thrilled at just the shift in energy.
well, I
And
don't want to rain on anyone's parade.
yeah,
And let us not forget that right up until, I would say, even on election night, until the polls closed, I think most people thought Hillary Clinton was going to win.
sure.
So we have to, not to say that we shouldn't have, I like, hope is important, enthusiasm is important, and we have to be really careful to not allow that to make us check out, to say, this is done. She's got this, no problem.
Right. No, I'm saying it
Yeah.
to re-energize us into continuing to the finish line. because we do see what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it, you know, it's giving me hope seeing the people that I thought immediately, you know, were going to be just just hateful stuff coming out, you know, seeing them pause and go, this could actually be a good thing. Or I didn't want to say it, but I hate DT that much. And it's that going, okay, we have a chance. You know, it's not like, oh, we can give up now, she's going to win. No, because, you know, as we saw with Hillary, the media is going to do Trump's job for him. The media is going to do Project 2025's job for them. And to your point, Becky, and we cannot sleep on the fact that they already have a plan to contest the election, because I think they already know they're going to lose it, both popular vote and electoral vote. So they already have, what was it, Agent 47 or something like that. It's not.
They have their secret code names for everything.
Yeah, right. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's Project 2025 is already being enacted, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of us are only suddenly afraid of it because we're just now learning, because they finally put it in paper.
Well, I was gonna say, it's something for us to think about too, is that as much as so many of us are educated on these topics, only 1 in 4, as of the most recent stat I saw, only 1 in 4 Americans actually have heard of, let alone know what it is, Project 2025. So one of the things too that's really important for us is, like, those of us who have maybe more awareness of these issues, who have more of the, like, who are seeing the polls or these kinds of things, have to remember that the average Americans are not, and I don't mean average as like a slur in any way. I just mean most folks are not. We are more the exception than the rule. And so it really is incumbent on us to do that work of trying to educate, of sharing. And I'm really grateful for the point you brought up at the beginning, because this is as much a note for me as anyone else, that shaming, blaming, yelling, judging, none of those things work to move the needle. If, like me, it's difficult for you to have these conversations without that energy, then going back to Deepa Iyer's, the social change map, then storytelling may not be, even though I said I do storytelling, may not be the best modality for you, the best way for you to be a part of the change. So thinking about what is the way that you can be a part of the change. We can have those conversations with the people with the people with whom? With the people that we can have those conversations and not get activated. That's important. But once we move into that activation state, we're probably actually not helping. We're now hurting. And is that useful? Probably not, right? So for us to remember that, because I have been through it recently, of a lot of shaming, not from Republicans, but from people on the left, shaming me, and me realizing how much that actually pushes me farther away. Thankfully, I'm still very much committed, but I can see how someone would say, well, fuck it then. If you're going to be that way, I'm not going to support this at all. I'll just stay home. So we have to be really careful when we're talking to people, no matter where they're at, even if we think they agree with us, but maybe they're not in the same place as us, to watch out for how we're speaking about these things so that we are not turning voters off. And if we can't, that's also okay. Like, I think we all have to recognize where our strengths lie and then say, what is the way I show up?
Well, to add to that, I think it's also possible to be a chameleon of sorts. You know, start recognizing your audience and listen, I'm an excellent storyteller for people that are already kind of seeing my way or looking my way or think the way that I do, because they see the passion for what it is. But I'm clearly going to have to put on a more empathetic hat and a more, like common ground hat with people that already don't think about me. So, it is a difficult skill to master, but it is possible to be a chameleon as needed, for the type of communication or the type of activism that you want to have. And I've told my daughter from the jump, because she's like, why are people so like angry at me? Why are they so mad at me? And I said, they're not mad at you, they're afraid. And like, nobody presents as fear if they can help it. Fear almost always manifests as anger. And so we have to remember that, a lot of these angry reactions we're getting, they're based in fear. fear of the unknown, and they've been told a lot of lies for a really long time, so they have no idea what to believe.
Yeah, Project 2025 is obviously all rooted in fear as well, right?
Of course.
Reactionary sort of fear. So yeah. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. I appreciate it because I knew I could count on you to get us started. Lisa never has any problems with saying, I got something to say, and I appreciate it. Anyone else want to speak up or share or ask questions? If you've read anything that was really helpful for you. I also just want to make sure that you see, if you want me to send you that, the spreadsheet or the slideshow with all of the linked out resources, just drop your email. You can do it privately, a direct message or something. If you don't want everybody to see your email, that's fine. And I'm happy to send it to you. I am not keeping everyone's emails or anything from before. So if you want it, let me know. And if you're on YouTube and you want it, you can either put a message in YouTube, that might be hard, or send me an email. I'm Becky at beckymollenkamp.com. So raise your hand. Anybody else want to join the conversation? Ask any questions? Share anything?
Well, this is play chime for raised hands, but I guess it's not telling you anything.
Oh, it's okay. Hi, Tracy.
Hi. Well, so I'm in a blue state, but I happen to be in a red district, unfortunately, and I've not been able to change that. So when people say call your representatives, MAGA, it's interesting that I grew up in an apolitical family that we just didn't discuss politics. And for instance, one of my sisters wants to move to Florida, and my reaction was, Florida, who'd want to move there? And then the politics, and she's, oh, she doesn't care. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. So, but it's not that I'm on a personal mission to change my mother, but what I've noticed is that she kind of represents people or reports to me on people that we kind of forget are out there. So she grew up, I guess I'll call her an Eisenhower Reagan Republican. So at this, it's kind of my mission at this point has been to explain to her what kinds of policies are being voted on, how Republicans vote for veterans, how they're voting on abortion. And I've told her about Project 2025, and she's kind of in a state of disbelief, like, oh my God, no, you can't, nobody would want to do that. But one of the things she threw up was like, oh, all my friends are saying, she called her Kamala, and I didn't even know who she meant. She said her friends are saying that Kamala is a communist, and they're very angrily proclaiming her to be a communist. And I try not to get defensive. I just said I can't think of a single one of her policies that's not like pro capitalism or even pro socialism, but communism. Like, please give me some examples. I don't know. So again, it's not my mission to change her so much as kind of get her to understand, and in turn, hopefully pass the message to her friends who are talking about these things, that it's no longer their party. I think she's starting to get that because she grew up Republican, and she still has a few holdovers, but she's slowly coming to terms with the fact that a lot of the policies that are being enacted are ones that she personally hates. And so right now she's kind of in limbo. And I was telling her just before I came on this call about our concern brought up by Mark Elias about the red state electoral boards refusing to certify that possibility. And I don't know what our options are for that sort of thing. If if the electoral boards refuse to certify, if Harris wins and they refuse to certify, so that enough of them, so that ultimately the entire election goes to the House. I don't know if you're familiar with that concern. If you're, that's
Yeah.
something that I don't know what our options are against that, other than let's vote like we've never voted.
That is the first and foremost, I believe, is they make this such a clear and decisive victory that it becomes much more difficult for just publicity's sake, right? For them to be able to publicly do something so misaligned with the election results. Beyond that, we have to have some faith in what democracy we have now. And so, yeah, but I mean, I think the only thing that's within our control at the moment is trying to mobilize and activate voters. And to speak to what Gabrielle, sorry if I'm saying it wrong, was talking about too. And thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing, because I feel that. And I was just gonna say to you before I go to Gabrielle's question, or Gabrielle's question, is one thing that can sometimes be helpful, not always, but sometimes be helpful with some of those old guard Republicans who are slowly starting to come to some sense that this is not their party, and that even more so that they are not sure if they can fully support this party anymore, is there are so many former Republicans that are speaking out. I mean, obviously the Lincoln Project, there's others that have podcasts and things. I don't know I mean, if your mom's an Eisenhower Republican, she might be a little older and not a podcast listener, but if you can find some of those resources for her from some of those former Republicans that names she might recognize, and tell it from their words, sometimes that can help because it's coming from somebody that they felt aligned with them. Whereas sometimes, because again, this white supremacy culture, we are very much brought into being defensive, to protecting ourselves, to being correct. And so when it feels like it's this opposite party talking to me, we can get defensive. When it feels like it's somebody who actually is like me, knows me, we may be more open to receiving the exact same information. So when you can get it from a resource or a source that's speaking the language she knows, right? The Republican language, that can help. So thank you. And I wanted to talk about Gabrielle. I don't know. I'm so bad at that name. I don't know if it's Gabrielle or Gabriel. I don't know. I think Gabriel's boy is the male version and Gabrielle. Anyway, you were asking about who to reach out to. Like, how do you prioritize who to reach out to as white women? Should it be the white women who voted Republican, white women who are disengaged, leftists who are for Gaza, kind of have the line in the sand? I mean, I love Presley's answer, which is like talking to the people who agree with you most. I can tell you, looking at all of the numbers, so those white women numbers are far more divided than just this generic 45% or whatever. When you look at it, the people who are most likely to vote Republican and probably going to be the most difficult for you to bother breaking through, the more evangelical number one. Above all the other factors, evangelical is the top one that will say someone's going to vote Republican. So your evangelical friends, it's going to be much harder to try and break through. Then would become either rural or less educated. Both of those were pretty close. So your rural friends and friends who have less education are going to be sort of the next most difficult to break through. And often all of these kind of align. So the more of the things I'm talking about now that they have, the harder time you will ever have. So the most likely people are going to be, if you happen to know any urban educated white women who might still be leaning towards, like, who are not certain about Kamala, those are the most important people to talk to. The urban white women are the most likely to vote Democrat, and the more educated they are, the more likely are to vote Democrat. So if you know any of those women that you're not sure, if they're not 100%, you can't be certain that they're not like fibbing to the people and saying, oh, I'm totally going to vote for Kamala, and then are going to go in there and vote differently. Those people. Next is suburban women. Suburban women are by far the biggest swing part of the white woman demographic. Women like myself, which is why I feel this obligation to do this, because I am that white woman, suburban, well-educated mom who I'm in a red state, Tracy, but in a blue district. So the opposite of you. I have never voted for a Republican in my life. So I'm not the typical person they're talking about, but that person is like the primo person for you to probably try to reach out to. Your suburban mom friends that have probably got a college degree. Those are the ones that, from what I can tell, I think seem to be the people who know better. Like, they know how they will be received if they say they wouldn't vote for Harris, but they're the ones when they get into that booth, something kind of switches and they're like, well, my husband did this, or, but I kind of don't like the school thing or the whatever. And they're likely to switch. And so the more that you can really get through to them about why to not make that change when they get in the booth is really important. The people on the far left, the people on the far right are going to be harder. I think you'll have more luck with the Gaza folks than the deeply, deeply red folks. But yeah, I would say look at suburban moms. Any of your suburban mom people in your life, that's the most likely. Maybe if anybody else wants to say anything, feel free to unmute yourself or to raise your hand. I'm just looking to see what any of this other info said. And yes, Gabrielle, oh, I'm so bad at that. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm having such an issue with Gabrielle. I agree with you. Like, and I don't know if you got to see the slideshow I did, Gabrielle, but that's like, we need to embrace that both and we have to, if we want to reach people, we can't reach people by shaming and getting into this place of there's only one right way to do this. There's only one right way to support Harris, because you can vote for Harris and have problems with some of her policies. I'm one of those people. And when we have people on the far left telling me that means I'm a failure at being a socialist, or I'm a failure at being a progressive, so be it. But I also have people on the other side of that are more moderate, who are telling me I'm failing, I'm basically no better than Trump. None of those things help me. It's not helping anything. So it's not bringing me to anyone else's side. Oh, thanks, Presley. I think I missed you, but bye. And hi, Linda. I see you joined us. How many of the folks who are here were not here during the little presentation I did? Hi, Gabriel or Gabrielle. Oh, I did it again.
I wasn't.
Tracy, and I know Linda wasn't. Anyone else? I don't want to bore anyone who's already been through it, but if anyone wants me to restart, I'm happy to do that. And this could be, we're at the hour mark, which halfway of what I said I would be here. So, I am going to do a giveaway. Oh, before y'all go, anyone who drops their email in, I think, and I have Presley's, I think she may have already too, before anyone leaves, because everyone who's left, I think, has given me their email. What I'll do, put your email in, and I will enter those into they have those things online, little generators where you can random pick someone, and I'm going to random pick somebody, and I will email you to say, you want a t-shirt, and then you can go on my shop and pick whatever t-shirt you want. Just tell me the size and which one, and I will send it to you. That's going to be my little giveaway. Thank you for coming out and doing this, because I've never done anything like this, and I'm really grateful for the people who have shown to support me, because it means a lot, because I'm live on YouTube. I've never done that. I've never done anything like this to support. I used to be employed by NARAL, which I don't even know if it exists as NARAL anymore, but oh, sorry, Rachel, you live in Europe. You can't vote either, but thank you for being here then. Like, that's amazing. Oh, and that was a private message. Sorry, but I hope I didn't give anything away by sharing that. I just realized. Anyway, I worked for NARAL, and I did a lot of like major campaigning for Obama, and I've still never done anything like this. So this is very different for me in the way of participating. Please, if you haven't donated, donation link. There is not a okay, so Rachel, anyone else who's coming in and missed it, I'm not cool. I'm not Glennon Doyle. I'm not like, Shannon Watts. I love them and good on them, but I'm not like, clearly we have like 11 people in the room or whatever, and a few people on Zoom. I'm not bringing in the kind of numbers that Act Blue's like, let me give you a dedicated thing. It's just donate. Just donate. All you have to type is Harris Victory Fund on Google, or go to Act Blue and find it and donate. Whatever feels in accordance to you, donate, like your privilege, your ability, your capacity. If you've already given, okay, that's fine too. So just donate where you can. And you're welcome, Connie. And I hope you dropped, and Allie, I hope you dropped your link in, or were you, yeah, you weren't the one who said, hopefully you've dropped your link in, Allie. If you haven't, everyone do, because that's the way you're going to get entered into my like very exciting giveaway, is if you enter your email, and then one of you will win a t-shirt. So yeah, donate. If you haven't, please say you have. I'm not even keeping track of how much, because I can't. I could ask you all to send proof. I was going to have a big goal to try and raise, and recognize pretty quickly I wasn't going to have the turnout for that. So it is what it is. We're here. We're learning together. We're sharing together. I'm sharing resources. I'm hoping you get something out of this that helps you feel like you're better prepared to go into the election, or if nothing else, just feel more like you know how to show up as the intersectional feminist you want. Oh, great, Rachel. I'm going to go now into showing this one more time, this slideshow. Oh, why did it pause? Hold on a sec. Come on. Share. My screen sharing is paused. How do I fix that? Well, I may not be able to show the slideshow again. I keep saying my screen share. Oh, maybe because I haven't. No, I shouldn't make a difference. Oh, resume. Is that how I do it? Well, everyone, these are live tech glitches. If anyone has any ideas.
Was it PowerPoint?
No, it's through Canva and it worked earlier. I don't understand.
The sizzle reel.
It's just like a PowerPoint presentation. It worked earlier. This is so weird. Oh, are you
You're
seeing
being
that?
presented. You're being presented.
Yeah. I wonder if it's because I need to oh, now it has me on like a I wonder if I need to pin myself. I wonder if that makes a difference. If I stop the like maybe I needed to get rid of the I can't believe that would be it. Oh, what a bummer. Well, I'm glad I got to show it once. Hmm. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know why it's not working. Chat. What's this say? They're good slides too. Thank you. I was really proud of myself for my slideshow I pulled together today. I felt really good about it, and now it won't let me share it. And I'm not sure how to do that without ending everything and then destroying everything I've done here. I wonder, maybe I can try one other way. Maybe if I pull it up. No, well, who knows? Let's just see. Let me try sharing a different screen. Maybe it's just that screen that was the problem. Oh, yeah. See this? There we go. Okay. I don't know. You can see this now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If you've already seen all this and you want to leave, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm here until the top of the hour. You can also hang out. I'll go through it a little faster this time because I've already like gone through it, but feel free to hang out. Also, the second version will be different because I had none of it scripted. I'm just looking at it. I wanted to talk about the white women problem because a little small, even a little tiny shift in how white women are voting would secure a victory because when we look at these numbers, one of these rows is not like the other columns. One of these columns is not like the other, right? It's really clear who has cost us and who is the problem here on getting Democrats elected. And so we are the ones that need to fix this. We cannot wait for people to save for Black women or other folks to save us. Oh, I don't know, Lisa, maybe we'll see. I have to get my kid to bed. White women are 39% of the electorate. We are the largest voting bloc, larger than white men or any other group. And we are the most divided. We are split along, and I mentioned some of those earlier, so you probably heard me talking about them: evangelical, educated, married or not. And then also this, that doesn't say, but demographically, whether you're urban, suburban, rural. We are the most divided of all of the voting blocks. Every other demographic group, white men, black women, men, Asian women, they all vote far more uniformly. They are far more in agreement. We are the most divided. And why is that? I won't read this whole long thing to you. You can read it if you'd like, but it really comes down to proximity to power. It comes down to saving ourselves in a way, because white women, we have the unique placement of having both whiteness and women. We are both white and we are women, right? We have these two very different identities. And in the structure of things, of those two identities, one of them is more dominant than the other, right? We live inside of a white supremacist patriarchy. Inside of patriarchy, men have a place higher than women on the hierarchy of privilege. But whiteness is at the pinnacle of privilege. And in the world we live in, whiteness carries more weight than does our gender or sex anyway. And so white women often fall to their whiteness because it puts them closer to power. It protects them more than does their gender. And so white women often choose their whiteness. As Rachel Cargill, who I love, said, and she once said, did you manifest it or is your white privilege? I thought that was great. White women are constantly choosing their whiteness over their womanhood, choosing to vote for people who help maintain their white supremacy, because again, that's the one that allows us to be at the top of that chart, as opposed to helping to maintain the safety of women overall. And as I shared, this problem is not new, even though we keep hearing about it at election after election, like each time thinking, oh, maybe it'll be different. And then each time saying, ugh, white women let us down again. But it's been going on for a really long time. Only two out of the last two elections since like 1950 something, 52, 54, there's only been two times that women have voted for the Democratic candidate in a majority. Every other time women have voted Republican, white women, I need to keep saying white women have voted Republican, but it goes well farther back than that. So I start here with the civil rights movement in the 70s, that second wave of feminism, where those second wave feminists continued to alienate, keep out issues of concern to Black women, and most especially Black lesbians. That was also when, our LGBTQ and specifically trans women were definitely being othered and not included. And so I share a link you'll see for the Combahee Collective, River Collective statement, which every white woman should read, because that was born out of this time when the Black lesbians said, "You're not including us. We're done. We're going to be our," and that's really the birth of the womanist movement. If you haven't heard that term, which is really owned more by Black women and saying feminism doesn't represent us. Goes back farther than that. We go back another generation to suffragists, people that we hold up today. Many people, quote and put on our coins and really value are these women who fought for the right to vote. But in truth, they were fighting only for the right for women to vote, white women to vote, and not Black women. And in fact, actively were trying to keep Black women from voting. And part of that was this idea of, hey, everyone has to wait their turn, quote unquote, which have we not heard that recently too, from someone, and I can't remember who it was now, talking about Kamala, some Republican guy saying, they skipped over a white woman, as if that was the natural order of things. And that was very much the same mentality then, that it's like, no, you have to wait your turn. If we try to include Black women, then none of us will get the right to vote. So we'll just include ourselves. And in fact, it was actually even more malicious in many ways for many women, especially in the South, who were actively fighting to maintain white supremacy. And there's a lot you can read about that. And then going back even farther, even before women could vote, before they could own land, before they could run for office, the one thing that women have always been able to do, the same as men, to have parity with men, white women, was that they were able to own, buy, sell enslaved people. And 40% or more of slave owners were white women. And that is so important for us as women to acknowledge and to know about, and to understand that deep context of the animosity, the challenges, the relationship, the very troubled relationship between white women and Black women over the entire history of this nation, and to understand why Black women don't trust white women, and they shouldn't. Why Black women can't feel safe with white women. Black women can't feel safe with white women. These issues go back hundreds of years, and we need to know that. I think often as white women, we like to look at our oppressed identity as women without acknowledging, honoring, understanding, owning our oppressor identity and how far back that goes. And it's really important for us too. If we want to be able to have meaningful conversations about these issues, we need to understand the bigger context to be able to have these conversations in a way that brings everyone to the table. And something that I think is really important for us to think about then is that our urgency that we sense, that we feel as white women, is not universal. Urgency is a pillar of white supremacy culture. And you will feel that often right now, where white women are in this place of, oh my gosh, this is an existential threat. It's happening now. Why would anyone not be as freaked out as I am about this? Where is your panic? If you don't have panic, there's something wrong with you. And yes, Project 2025 and Trump winning again are, and the potential of fascism are very real and dire threats. And white women are predicting this as or thinking of this as a future vision of a dystopia. But Black women have already lived and or are currently living without many of the freedoms that we as white women are now feeling threatened about losing. And we have to remember that. We have to honor that when we talk about these things, because when we talk about it with this urgency that, oh, look what's happening now, it is not honoring the fact that this is not new for many people. I love this quote from Bree Newsome. We are becoming a handsmaid tale, which is something we've been hearing about so much in the post-Dobbs ruling world. But it is such a white-centered take because it ignores that we are living in a struggle against genocide and slavery that's been going on for over 500 years. For over 500 years, our Black sisters have already been dealing with these issues, right? To a degree that we've never understood. And we can't now pretend or somehow make it seem like they're important only because they're now potentially, not even yet, potentially affecting us. And to some degree are, I suppose, in the post-ops world. But we have to really be mindful of that. And even with Project 2025, which again does represent a very big threat, these are some of the key areas. And, there's so many things. It's 920 pages. I link to it. You can go read as much of it as you want, or the synopsis document, which is still 48 pages that I link to. But these are some of the areas that are potentially going to be affected by Project 2025. And the things that are going to happen are very scary. Absolutely. And we still have to keep in mind as we think about that and talk about that, the current reality for Black women in this country and how very different it is than it is for us in each of these areas. To act as if these areas and these things that Project 2025 is going to touch on are this terribly new threat is not real and representative of the lived experience of Black women and what they are going through, and look at some of these issues. So knowing this context matters, because when we talk about these issues, we have to be able to do it inside of this larger context instead of framing it only from our perspective as white women. That is where we fall short. And it is costing us really meaningful relationships. So white women, we have to learn to stretch beyond the binary. Either or thinking, that Black and white either or thinking, is a pillar of white supremacy culture. That is why it is possible for people like myself, for many of the Black women I follow, it is possible to both want Trump to lose and to not think that Harris is necessarily the best alternative or that she is the best candidate. It's possible to both vote for Harris and question where she stands on issues, most especially around the genocides happening around the world, but other issues as well. And it's possible to both fundraise for a Democrat and not be a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a socialist. I'm a democratic socialist. And I am still doing this, trying to encourage people to vote, encouraging people to learn about these issues, because I do think it really matters. And there is still so much more that we need to do beyond what Harris promises. Both of those things can be true. Kimberly Crenshaw is the person who coined the term intersectional feminist or intersectionality, which is the understanding of how our varying identities overlap and reflect or change our experience with the world around us. And that is the thing that's so important for us to remember as white folks. As white women, we have these two intersecting identities, but for Black women, their identities are, they have just Black women have two of the most oppressed identities. And then if you add in a disability or, poverty or other issues, that their experience of the world around them has far more oppressions and marginalizations to think about. So beyond the things that we can do for Kamala Harris to get her elected, and I think even more important, honestly, than those things, is to start here and to ask yourself, are you learning? We all have to learn. We need to educate ourselves about our privilege as white women. This is what Black women have always wanted us to do and have needed us to do, and where we keep falling short for them. We get engaged in these brief moments, when there's yet another police shooting and a murder of a Black man or a Black woman, Sonia Massey most recently, probably someone even more recent that hasn't made as much news, or at a time of an election, we show up, we put out our black box, we read a book, and then we go back to falling onto our privilege. We have to learn about our privilege, and not just by asking Black women on Google or on Threads to educate us, but by learning by ourselves, and then not just learning, but then engaging with ourselves to ask, how am I disadvantaging others because of my privilege? How might I be causing harm with macro or microaggressions? What are the things that what is my role in this? Even if I've done a lot of work over the last decade, a lot. And I still keep excavating all of these areas where I am falling back on my privilege or causing harm. And then the next piece of that then is when that happens for us to evolve. My kiddos back here, I know they can see it. Okay, please. And so we have to evolve to learn how do we avoid the white supremacy tactics that pull us out of the learning, right? That there's only one right way to do this. And if I don't do it right, then I have failed. That's something that can come up for us as white women. And then we will fall onto white guilt and then we just step out. Another issue is when someone will tell us we've messed up, we get defensive or we use our tears as weapons. These are not things that help us engage or stay committed. We have to learn how to acknowledge what those tactics, those white supremacy issues are, and then to acknowledge when we've messed up and to make amends when we do cause harm, and then endeavor to do better, not because we want somebody to tell us we're great or because we want to be better than the other white people or because we feel guilty, but because it's the right thing to do. And then we need to use our privilege to speak up when we see injustices happening, most especially when we hold the privileged or oppressor identity in the situation, to speak out. And I think this is just so important, which is why I wanted to do this presentation and why I'm talking about this, because when we talk about these issues, whatever the issue is, again, like I said before, everything's political. Whether we're talking about the show we're watching, the food we're eating, or who we're voting for, we need to, most especially as white women, because of all of the reasons that we're problematic, we need to think and talk about everything in the broader context beyond just white women's experiences, but in this broader context of this white supremacist culture that we live in. Because everything, food deserts, right? Everything is inside of this larger cultural issue. And we as white women really have a responsibility to be thinking of everything that we're talking about inside of that. And then finally, amplifying the voices of Black women. Listen to what Black women say about an issue and then default to them or share their voice before you use your own. And then when we do, when they do speak, when we do share their words, to let their words speak for themselves, not to speak over, correct, question, diminish, interpret what they've said. So these are really important things we can be doing. And I shared some books. Again, I will send all of you who have put your email into the chat. I will email you this slideshow. All of this stuff links out. So all of the resources I share are things that you can go and find. I won't go through all of these again, but just know that they're all really, really wonderful books. There are many more. There's so many things that you can learn from and read about. So feel free to find the things that speak to you. All of that is the white woman problem. We're not going to solve that overnight, but we can be a part of the change. What about now? What about defeating Project 2025? That is the most pressing issue, right? That we want to take care of and we want to fight against. And I just want to point out that yet another pillar of white supremacy is the one right way, that there's only one right way to do something. And we see this happen a lot in the social media space about activism, that there's only one right way to be an activist or only one right way to get someone elected. There's only one right way to show up as a Democrat or whatever the thing is. And that's just not true. There's nuance in life. And as much as people don't like that, there is. And part of that is also in how we go about expressing our activism. I really love Deepa Iyer's social change map. Credit to Taina Brown, my friend and co-host of my podcast with her, Messy Liberation, for introducing me to the social change map. This is an approach to activism that honors all the ways that we can become activists. So as you think about the upcoming election, and you can get this, it's not like a big book. It's harder to find, but she has a website. You can't get it through Amazon. You just have to go to her website. It's this like wonderful little workbook that talks you through all of these roles and has journaling things in here. It's really wonderful. But you can look at all these different ways of showing up. And many people, like, we need the disruptors. We need the people who are out protesting, who are getting arrested, who are making the news. We need those people. But not all of us are those people. Some of us are what I like to think of myself as the storytellers, the ones that are getting on social media and sharing the stories, talking about these issues. That is as valid and as important a way of being an activist for change, for changing white supremacy culture, for getting Kamala Harris elected, as the people who are out knocking on doors or protesting. Caregivers, the people who take care of those who are expending so much of their energy and or money or other resources to be out on those front lines. That's an important role. So finding the roles that work for you, activate yourself in the way or ways, for some of us are maybe multiples of these that resonate, that are right for your gifts, capacity, and for us as white women, most especially our privilege. We hold more privilege than almost anyone except for white men. And so we need to be taking on more of the role. And yet what we see time and time again is that white women opt out And we count on other people, namely Black women, to save us. And we cannot do that. We cannot count on that. We cannot ask of that labor. We need to be giving our own labor. We have more privilege. We should be doing more. So, what can you do? Vote. Obviously, number one, confirm that you're registered to vote. Most states, you need to be registered well in advance of the election. So make sure that you're registered to vote. There's a link where you can go and do that. Find your polling place so that you know where you're going to go vote, or if you're going to vote absentee, to get that set up and ready to go. Educate yourself on Harris's stances on the issues and or on Project 2025, depending on, or both, depending on how you want to talk about these things. And then you can share that with other folks. Volunteer. You can go to kamalaharris.com and there's lots of ways. Like, she has a thing where you can sign up to, in your region where you are, to knock on doors, to make phone calls, etc. Again, that's not for everyone. If that's the way you want to be activated, then do that. And then obviously donate, give in accordance to your privilege, to the Harris Victory Fund, which is through Act Blue. And you can do that on your own. I'm not holding anyone to it. These are some resources that I wanted to share. I mentioned the Combahee River Collective Statement. I think every white woman should read that. There's also the People's Guide to Project 2025 from Democracy Forward. That one's about 48 pages, or the full 920-page document. And there's just a couple other things in here I think are great, especially that Divorcing White Supremacy Culture by Tima Okun. That's the one that gets into all of these pillars of white supremacy. And we as white women should really educate ourselves on those so that we know how to watch for them, how to watch for when white supremacy is coming up, when we're engaging with folks, so that we can check ourselves on it and not have to have other people check us on it. Or when we do get checked on it, to recognize it and not to get defensive, which is a pillar, and to notice, like, oh yeah, I am doing that thing. And I didn't mention this last time, but I just feel compelled to also release ourselves from any shame about it. We are all born and raised in these waters, and of course we show up this way. And by the way, it's not just white women. All of us are raised in this white supremacy culture, and we all take it, internalize it. It looks a certain way for white women and different for other folks. But for us, we need to be able to say, like, I don't have to hate myself, feel guilty, or be ashamed of it when it shows up. What I do need to do is recognize it, own it, and then if I've caused harm because of it, make amends for that, and then try to do better next time. That is all we can do. And that is our goal as white women. I just wanted to share a few quotes, a few threads from some folks that I thought were really wonderful. Just this acknowledgement of our folks that are friends, our friends that are people of color, our Black friends, they know this is not easy for white folks. That doesn't excuse us from not taking action, but they recognize this is hard. It's hard doing this work because it can cost us. It comes at a cost. We can lose friends, we can lose family members, we can lose, we can feel the pain of having someone being angry with us. There's cost to it. And we have to be willing to pay that cost if we actually want to be more than allies in name only. If we want to be actual allies, we have to be willing to accept those costs. And that was it. Feministfounders.co is where you can find my newsletter. If you want to stay in touch with me after this, no obligation to do that, but if you'd like to, that's where I am. Did I lose the YouTube of this? I don't know. Hopefully I'm still on YouTube. I don't see it here. I don't know, Rachel, your comment was to me privately, so I don't know if you wanted me to share that. Thank you to everyone who has shown up. I still have half an hour, but if there's no one here, I'll probably check out early because I don't want to sit in here alone. And I've gone through the presentation twice. I'm not doing it again.
No,
For
that's
those of
good.
you,
Thank you for
oh,
doing
sorry.
it again. I was just saying thank you for doing it again.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to.
Presentation.
That was my thought, was I would probably do it at the top of each hour and then see if there was discussion to follow. But also I figured more people would probably show up in the beginning, which I was right, and then dwindle out, which is totally cool. I wouldn't sit here for 2 hours, so I get it. But I'm happy to continue to have a conversation with you, Rachel and Linda and Tracy, if you guys have anything you want to talk about, or also we can check out early. And just that reminder that if you haven't donated yet to the Harris campaign, please do, if you can. And if that is not something that fits with your privilege and capacity, then look at the other ways that you still can be activated to help make change. So any of you want to talk about?
I'm kind of a money person.
We need money people. That's
Yeah,
great.
I mean that's kind of my role. I am not a disruptor. or a door knocker because I just clam up when I'm around people.
And
Besides,
that's
I live
okay.
in a gated community and we're not allowed to do any of that stuff.
There you go. And you also, we have to, there is no reason to put ourselves into an unsafe environment if you live in a very red area where you're unlikely to affect much meaningful change and all it's doing is activating your nervous system and not doing any actual good to move the needle. I personally say, why are we doing that when we could instead be funding the folks who are in an area where they could make a difference, or whatever your other way of showing up is. So I think it's great, Tracy, to recognize what works for you and to do that thing. So hopefully you've donated to the Harris campaign, and to know there are also other ways to donate, that, not necessarily just to Harris. If there's other issues that are important to you, we can also continue to fund those.
Well, I've also, I've donated to individual reps and stuff who are in areas that I haven't been,
Yes.
you know,
And thank you we haven't mentioned down ballot at all.
down
This
ballot
has been
stuff.
very
Yeah.
specific around Harris just because that's what the theme was of the night. But for anyone who may watch this on YouTube, or for those of you who are still here, like, how we cannot overstate how important the down ballot issues are. And that is one of the reasons too, that to get Harris voters out is not just about supporting Harris, although it is, but it's also about saying we know that when the top of the ballot goes one way, that tends to have a very important trickle down effect to down ballot. And it's the local that really end up making the biggest difference in our lives. Obviously, Project 2025 is a big issue, but the down ballot people are also the people that are going to show up in Congress or in our state houses to make decisions that affect us on the day to day. Linda, thank you for donating. So,
Yeah, I will later.
yeah.
I had actually donated a lot for, it was Biden, and then but then she got his war chest.
Yes, which is good. None of that money went to waste. It's still going to go to help get her
Yeah.
elected, which is great. And I recognize that a lot of people have probably already attended some of the white women or other. There's been so many calls supporting Harris, which is a beautiful thing that there have been so many. So I recognize that a lot of people have already given. And so I'm not like, I just don't, I can't keep track of how much people are giving anyway. So I got rid of the donation goal, and really more than anything, I wanted this to be educational and hopefully motivational in a way, and just want people to feel like they're learning something and I don't know, getting some value out of this. Hi, Sandra or Sandra. I don't know how you say it. Thanks for joining. I know we're towards the end here. We appreciate you coming in. Um, just to update you, Sandra, I had a presentation about the white women problem and also just like ways to get involved. I can send you the slideshow if you drop your email into the chat. You can just do it as a DM if you don't want everyone to see it. Everyone who has given me their email, I'm only going to send you the stuff. I'm not going to be emailing you, I promise. But I will enter you into a little raffle, and I'm going to select one person who was here and who shared their email with me to get a t-shirt from my shop. This is one of them, but you can pick the one you want. So one lucky winner will get one for being here and keeping me company tonight. So make sure if you're interested in that, Sandra, or Sandra, give me your email, and I will also send you the slides that you missed out on so that you can see all of that. And thank you, Rachel. Yeah, feel free, like all of you, feel free to hop off. I know there's a half hour left, but we'll just see how long it goes. Okay, Rachel's out. Linda and Tracy and Sandra, do any of you have any questions or anything you want to chat about? I don't have any more fancy presentation, and I don't have any celebrity guest appearances that will be happening.
I was told Beyonce would be here.
I know. And she had to cancel last minute. And then, I mean, now how do I look? I look like such a jerk for for not having Beyonce show up.
Yeah.
I wish.
Well, I'm surprised my mother has started to ask me questions. I think it's because she trusts me to be reasonable and not attack. In fact, she has friends who are fiercely democratic, and so she fights with them. But I found myself in the unenviable position one time of defending Trump
Mm.
against misinformation, and that was the old
Oh.
drinking. Remember that drinking bleach thing?
Hmm.
When people are saying he's telling people to drink bleach, and I actually saw his speech, or not his speech, but I saw
The
his
press conference.
and so a press conference, and I had explained to her what he actually said, and so I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they're wrong, you know, that kind of thing.
Well,
So
and
I
that's
think that's
just
why
it.
she
Like we've all,
trusts me.
yeah, and I think so many of us have gotten so like we're putting our feet into the ground so firmly that that on both sides that people are not wanting to accept reality in many ways or not willing to hear anything different. And that's a problem. And so we have to be careful about that. So it's great. It's okay that you're late, Sandra. I'm so happy that you came by. Like, I'm glad anyone showed up tonight. I think all told, there were about 5 or 6 people that were on YouTube and about a dozen-ish that were here. And so that's great. I'm thrilled that there were people who came to hang out with me. I do think, unless anyone has any other questions or anything, though, I'm probably going to call it early because I'm going to go put my kiddo to bed and get a little snuggle time with him. And obviously, the number of interruptions from him, he's wanting his mom. Hi, Tracy. Now I can see your face.
I look exactly like my profile picture.
There you go. Don't we all? I look like my profile picture from about like 20 years ago. um, but thank you all. I got to capture the chat so that I can get all of your emails. Save chat. Okay. Hopefully it's all, I want to make sure that everyone's emails are there. Do the DMs? Okay, they do. Okay, good. All right, so I'm gonna send everyone the slides to say thank you. They're all the sources, and I know you didn't see it, Sandra, so you'll be able to go through it. I mean, it's pretty much like there's some added verbiage that I spoke, but you'll get the whole gist from what I send you. And there's all of the resources that I mentioned are all linked out in there. And then all of you will be entered into a giveaway, which I will do a random giveaway tonight and be in touch tomorrow with the slides. And one of you will win a t-shirt. So thank you so much for being here. Gus, did you want to say hi real quick?
Thank you.
That's okay. All right. Good job. Thank you. All right. Step aside. Thank you so much. That's okay, Sandra. Thanks for stopping in. I really do appreciate it. And thank you, Tracy, Linda. Thank you for being here. Anyone else on YouTube who may still be there because I can't see it, but thank you. I'm going to end things now. Thank you.